Hello and welcome to Burst the Bubble UK, the podcast that attempts to burst the bubble between different ethnic communities and promote interfaith conversation. My name is Jonathan, and today we will be looking at the theme of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia in modern-day society. We are extremely lucky to be joined by two guests, Talia Pins, project coordinator at Stand Up, a charity which attempts to tackle anti-Semitism and Islamophobia in modern-day society, as well as Sumeyye, who suffered an Islamophobic attack a few years ago and hopefully will be open to sharing her experiences. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for having us. That's James.
I want to start by focusing on the rising anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. So, according to the Home Office, there were 650 hate crimes against Jews in 2018 and 3,000 Islamophobic attacks, which is like quite a staggering statistic. So, Talia, I'd like to ask you, if that's possible, where do you think this religious hatred stems from? Where's the root of all of this?
I think it's a really difficult question. I think that it's probably a question that people have been going over and over again throughout history, because anti-Semitism is one of the longest, probably is the longest forms of kind of religious discrimination, and it's all rooted in historical tropes. So when you look at modern day anti-Semitism, a lot of it can be linked back to the same ideas that were coming up again and again in the past. I think that if we look at anti-Semitism throughout history, it can kind of be broken down into different kind of periods. So you kind of started with religious anti-Semitism, that kind of arose after the death of Jesus, where the Jewish community were blamed for that, going more towards like the blood libel. By the way, if there's anything that I say that no one, please ask me to stop and clarify. Kind of blood libel, changed into racial anti-Semitism. So during the 1930s, the particularly in Eastern Europe. I mean, before that you had pogroms as well, but then we see it more kind of specifically in Germany with the rise of Hitler, the Nazis, and then leading the Holocaust. And nowadays, we would say, in Stand Up, we say kind of modern day or political anti-Semitism. So it's in a very different form, but still kind of has those same ideas, whether it's about ideas about Jews and money, whether it's about Jewish people controlling the world, whether it's about the anti-Semitic tropes of Jewish people having a big nose. These aren't new ideas. These are ideas that have been around for a very, very long time in history, and have kind of come up again and again and again in different ways.
So, Sumeyye, I understand you had a personal experience with an Islamophobic attack. Would you possibly be open to telling us about it? What happened?
Yes, definitely. So it happened in 2016, about 3 years ago. Me and my friend, we were just casually, crossing the traffic lights. We had two men kind of stand on each side of us, and we were surrounded by them. I kind of turned around to the guy to my right and I asked him what's going on. He tried to explain something, pointing at my headscarf. So I was just trying to acknowledge what's going on. At that time, what happened, then the other guy, he kind of came from behind and pulled my scarf off. I was obviously in shock and didn't know what to do. It was the first time I experienced any kind of, physical assault in that way. What we decided to do was call the police. I was just crying. My friend was calling the police. That was about it. I mean, we had lots of people on the high street and no one really done anything about it or kind of approached us to see what's going on. So I kind of had to deal with it on my own.
And what sort of aftermath, what sort of effect did this have after the incident?
I think with hate crime, what tends to happen is the victim suffers from psychological distress and most of the time low self-esteem. I'd say it did trigger some anxiety in me as well. I kind of found it difficult to go out on my own. I was very conscious around men because obviously the perpetrator was a male, and generally is the females with Islamophobic motivated crimes, it's usually females that are the victim because we are visually Muslims. And so for me the aftermath was just I was I found it very difficult to be around men, I'd say, especially, just because I knew it could happen again. But I was very lucky to, get really good support from the media. There was lots of media coverage, and my friends and family were very supportive. The wider community was also very supportive. So I think I kind of done a good job at tackling it.
Definitely. And this question is aimed at both of you. So we'll start with Talia. Do you think there's anything that the Jewish and Muslim communities can sort of do, or anyone can do, to be honest, that can combat this rise of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia in modern day society? Because it's definitely an issue that needs to be tackled, and it needs to be tackled right away.
Definitely. I think two things. I think reporting and education, which I'll talk a bit about first. Firstly, I'm so sorry that incident happened to you. It's really awful. When I run my sessions in schools, we always ask if anyone has experienced or witnessed a hate crime themselves, even if they aren't Jewish or Muslim, and 99% of the time most hands go up in the class, and I'm seeing this day in and day out, so which doesn't make it any better, but these are real issues. So I think firstly, encouraging reporting around hate crimes, and also making sure people know the avenues to go down. So I think it's brilliant that you call the police. Can I ask you, did the police take it seriously? Did they help you?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I personally didn't think the police will kind of deal with it, because a lot of people do experience that, where they are reporting but the police kind of doesn't take it as anything serious.
Yeah.
So with me, I was very lucky. I mean, the police officer that was investigating, he was just amazing. He kind of outreached to media. He checked up on me, So with him, I think he was very helpful in that way. So I can understand why people don't report, because I personally thought the police wouldn't do anything. I think most people have that mindset and they don't report. But from my personal experience, I think definitely reporting is very important,
Yeah, so we always encourage reporting in our sessions, not only to the police but to other organisations as well. So there are specific organisations that deal with specific hate crimes, so whether it's something Islamophobic, so we work very closely with Talmama, who are reporting service, they help with victim support as well, the CST for the Jewish community, Gallup for the gay, lesbian, bisexual and trans community, and there are organisations out there that have the expertise to help with specific hate crime. And if you look at the statistics of incidents occurring, if you take the Jewish and the Muslim communities, the level of incidents seem pretty similar, which doesn't really make sense considering the Muslim community is so much larger than the Jewish community and is definitely experiencing hate. And to me, what that suggests is that the Muslim community, A, aren't reporting, or B, don't know the avenues to report, and within the Jewish community as well. So it makes me so happy that you reported it and kind of took that issue further, because most people experience these things on a daily basis, don't think it's a hate crime, and then don't do anything about it.
Yeah, I knew I had to kind of speak out about it, because too many people experience it and they just stay quiet. The more quiet people become, they're just kind of allowing the people to continue on acting in that way.
100%.
Absolutely, that's something we're trying to do actually with this project. We're trying to raise awareness, get more people, really encourage dialogue between people. So I think that's definitely an important point. And earlier we were actually talking about Talmama, which is another organisation, another charity, which works against Islamophobia and discrimination. And you were saying, I think, that they now prefer the term anti-Muslim hate rather than Islamophobia.
Yeah, so we so at Stand Up, we will use the term anti-Muslim hate when talking about these incidents for a couple of reasons. We feel that Islamophobia kind of has these negative connotations, the idea of a phobia often being kind of linked towards an irrational fear that someone has, and we always say, there are 1.8 billion Muslims around the world, how can you fear them all, let alone meet them all? But also the idea that Islamophobia, anti-Muslim hate, is a more kind of measurable term. These things are happening. It's an issue, and that's kind of why we tend to use that term instead. I just very quickly want to go back onto my point about education, because I didn't get around to it. Kind of preaching what I do for a living, but also it ties into this idea of an open dialogue, sitting down with people from other faiths and having these conversations can really help to reduce hate crime as well, and just to be able to kind of have these conversations in an open forum, I think is really, really important to tackling these issues as well.
Definitely. And Sumeyye, it must have been really hard for you, particularly after you experienced such a traumatic event, for you to talk about it. You're clearly extremely, extremely brave that you managed to get your story out there. So thank you very much. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. But I would like to thank you both so much for joining us. It's been really interesting.
Thank you for having us.
And it's been really great. And our next edition of the Burst the Bubble podcast will be released on SoundCloud, YouTube and Spotify, hopefully. And if you enjoyed this, which I'm sure all of you did, you can keep updated by following us on social media at Burst the Bubble UK for Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, as well as Burst the Bubble UK _NCS on Instagram. So I'd like to thank all of you for listening, and until next time, goodbye.